The story of Irishman Seamus Culleton being detained in an American ICE detention facility has been a lesson in why politicians and journalists should take their time and do even the bare minimum research prior to publishing a story, because the narrative surrounding it has done a total 180-degree change in 3 days. The story started out with a series of articles about a young Irishman with a legal work permit married to an American with no criminal record who's been detained in an ICE facility for months. Naturally, the media painted the picture of a legal American resident being dragged off the street by evil ICE Gestapo stormtroopers and thrown into a concentration camp because that's just what happens in Trump's fascist America. And that's not me exaggerating. In a totally uncritical interview given by RTE's #1 hack Kieran Cuddihy, he calls the facility a modern-day concentration camp, and the host just nods along, totally unquestioning this insane statement.
The best way I could describe it is probably like a modern day concentration camp. It's a bunch of temporary tents.
Now, I'm no Holocaust historian, but I'm pretty sure the camp guards in Dachau and Auschwitz didn't allow prisoners to make international phone calls to media organisations so they could talk shit about the camp and the guards, but that's just me. In the interview, he even claims with absolutely zero evidence that the guards in the prison are murdering the prisoners.
I'm in fear for my life down here, honestly, because people have been killed by the staff here, by the security staff, and you just don't know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis.
And once again, the host just nods along and doesn't even question this because, sure, it's Trump's America, they must be executing prisoners. I mean, in this BBC interview, this woman accidentally admits she has no clue what he's even afraid of.
Inhumane, not conducive for even the most atrocious of criminals. He's afraid.
Of what?
I don't know.
Now, naturally, this salacious story got international attention with dozens of UK and US news organisations like CBS, NBC, Yahoo News, The Guardian, and many more picking up the story and using it, as the Irish media did, as a tool to reinforce their open borders anti-Trump agendas. Multiple Irish politicians have made supportive statements, with brain-dead MEP Maria Walsh comparing it once again to Nazi Germany.
The fundamental rights and freedoms of people in this world are experiencing something that we only read in the history books when Adolf Hitler was in charge in Germany. And it's terrifying.
Yeah, everyone I don't like is literally Hitler. Everyone except for me.
But no sooner had the ink dried on their pro-Shane Culleton stories than a few key details became public. It turns out that he wasn't actually a legal resident. He arrived in the United States in 2008 on a 90-day visa and overstayed it by over 16 years. It turns out that everything had been done legally and by the books by the US authorities. It turns out that he'd been offered a paid flight and thousands of euros in cash to go home to Ireland, and he's actually staying in the concentration camp entirely voluntarily and can leave at any time. And to put the final cherry on top of this journalistic and political embarrassment, it turns out that he actually fled Ireland because he was facing drug charges and he doesn't want to return because once he does, he'll most likely be charged. And it further came out, as I'm writing this story, that apparently he's abandoned 2 teenage daughters and never reached out to them.
This is so humiliating!
But you have to ask, why were the media and politicians so willing to blindly leap headfirst to this guy's defense without doing even the bare minimum of research on the case? And that's because they are desperate for the original narrative to be true. Irish journalists and politicians are overwhelmingly pro-immigration. They want nothing more than to attack any policy that in any way restricts immigration, or even just enforces basic border controls, and paint anyone as a fascist authoritarian goose-stepping their way to the Fourth Reich if they support this. And this case seemed to supply the perfect ammunition for them. Not only was this an innocent man being wrongly detained, but he was a clean-cut white guy with a job who speaks English. That's the core demographic of Trump's fan base. And if they can make it out that this guy will be arrested by ICE, well then nobody is safe. And that's why the international media picked up the story too. They saw the political potential in Culleton's case and rushed to use it to attack their ideological enemies without doing a lick of research. And now that it's all blown up in their faces, they will never mention Shane Culleton again, and they'll all pretend this never happened. But unfortunately for the Irish people, our government and media's hatred of enforcing the most basic and sensible immigration laws doesn't just extend to the United States. They also hate it when it happens here. Take the case of the Oyakanmi family. They're a family of asylum seekers allegedly from South Africa who've been living in Ireland since 2023 and had their claim rejected and have been issued a deportation order. Sounds simple, right? It's a clear violation of Irish law, and there's no reason it should be a political issue. Ireland, after all, is one of the most anti-immigration populations in Europe, and 75% of the population are against us taking in any more refugees, so just enforce the deportation order and move on. But things can never be that simple. You see, while a supermajority of the population want deportations, our overlords in politics and the media, well, they think deporting illegal immigrants is super mean, so we should just let them all stay. I mean, look at the interview that Virgin Media gave them. They didn't ask them a single question about their authenticity, quiz them about why they were rejected, ask them if they're actually South African, or even take any time to verify if a single thing they said was true. Instead, they just gave them a national platform to sell their sob story and overlaid it with cute pictures of their children looking happy and smiling to tug at the heartstrings of the smooth-brained morons who still watch their news show. I mean, just look at the state of the absolute wet wipes they put in front of the camera.
They have a human right to live like every other family does, and that they're not just a name on a piece of paper. They're deeply embedded into our community. People love them, and we're willing to fight for them.
They have a right to live like everyone else. It's like you that have this country the way it fucking is. You crying left-wing fucking gay bag. Jesus.
Now, in a real country, all this hullabaloo would be ignored, the law will be enforced, and the majority will respect it. But not in Ireland. In a completely predictable turn of events, their deportation order has been cancelled and they've been given another month to review their case, and I would be stunned if they were actually made to leave. So essentially, because deportations are mean and some people like these ones are nice, then you get to stay in Ireland forever. That's it. That's what over a century of Irish law boils down to. If you're nice, the law doesn't apply to you. And there's a reason the media is going so hard in this story, and it's because it sets a precedent. If you can't deport one family because they're popular despite them being very clearly illegal immigrants, then this trick can be used again and again. So you can't deport anyone, and you're left with masses of foreigners in your country who have no right to stay, but you also have no way or no will to remove them. So they will inevitably be allowed to stay, making Ireland a de facto open borders nation. Make no mistake about it, this is the goal of the media and the political class. Now, some of you may be thinking, perhaps the media and the politicians were just misled on the Culleton case, and they don't really believe that America shouldn't deport illegal criminals. Or maybe you think that they're just taking some extra due diligence in the asylum seeker family case because of the high public profile it's garnered, and they just want to be extra sure the correct decision was made. Well, if you think that, let me end that delusion for you. This week, a vote went through the European Parliament to designate a series of countries as safe, thus reducing the number of fake asylum seekers from those countries. And every single Fianna Fáil MEP refused to support it. Let me put that into context. This bill will ease the asylum process that is wildly popular in Ireland, that passed with 60% support of the ultra-liberal EU Parliament, and Fianna Fáil, who currently run our immigration system with Jim O'Callaghan as Minister for Justice, refused to support it. Also, this week, O'Callaghan even rolled back his limitations on family reunification. That is who these people are. They will make gestures and sound bites about needing a conversation about immigration, but when the rubber hits the road, they will never do anything to change it because they fundamentally support the mass importation of people to our small island. When given the choice between what's best for you or what's best for countless foreigners from all around the world looking to live off your taxes and hard work, they will choose them every single time. When people tell you who they are, believe them.